Hello and welcome back to Rams Talk Podcast. I hope you all had a fantastic Christmas. The games are coming thick and fast, so we are previewing this game against Oxford a little bit early. So we're recording before the Christmas break, as you wish. We've got Jack from T Manor Podcast joining us today. Jack Schumark, how are you doing, Jack?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. We're in that funny period, aren't we, where there's lots of football to talk about, but we've got to squeeze it in all together before Christmas. So, yeah, it's a bit busy for everyone.
That's exactly it. And at time of recording, Oxford find themselves in third place. I'm sure you'll be hoping that stays that way over the next couple of games, Jack. It's been some start for Oxford. Obviously, we're going to go into a bit more detail and find out what's gone right this season. Finishing 19th last season. I mean, is this a surprise for you?
I think, is it a surprise? I think I'm surprised that we're in the mix kind of this early. I know we're almost halfway through the season now, but I'm surprised we started so well. I think everyone was expecting the kind of transition from Carl Robinson into Liam Manning to take a bit longer. Obviously, that's all been kind of blown out the water now with Liam Manning leaving about a month ago. But pleasantly surprised. I think last season was awful. There's kind of a natural passing of the ways of Carl Robinson. I think when a manager's been at a club for 4 or 5 years, it does kind of go stale. You see that everywhere, even at the top level. But I think most fans are probably surprised that we hit the ground running so much this season. There's a big transition period in the summer in terms of players coming in, players going out, but it seemed to gel quite quickly. So, yeah, to be third headed into the kind of Christmas period, I think we'd have snapped your hands off in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, we'll get on to talk about current manager, previous manager, everything like that. But for you, what led you to that position where Manning's gone on to Bristol City, but what was the football? What was the football he was playing? What was his kind of methodology? Why was it getting a beat out of this squad and the club itself?
I think he just changed a few things. So we changed our goalkeeper, Simon Eastwood, who was basically ever present last year, but is kind of he's mid-30s now, so he's probably more of an old school keeper. Signed James Beadle on loan from Brighton, who for me, and I think most Oxford fans would agree, he will play for England. He's a kind of modern young keeper, really good ball at feet, good distribution, but he's also a brilliant shot stopper. And there's not many of those keepers about now who can do kind of everything. And I think he's 18, 19. He's had call-ups for the 21s already. So we do play from the back. Too much at times, but I think that's part of the modern game now. You have to kind of accept that. But yeah, Manning just came in and he's slowly kind of put his style onto the team. He's got a tune out of Marcus McGuane in midfield. Signed players like Ruben Rodriguez, players like Greg Lee and Carl Edwards on loan from Ipswich. So he identified quickly what he wanted and he got a lot of his business done. Whereas in previous transfer windows, we've been scrabbling about on the last day, kind of looking for something to fall in our favour. Whereas, we went into pre-season pretty set. And actually, I think that's probably benefited us because they gelled quite quickly. And the start we had kind of proved that.
Yeah. And you said at the top of the show, obviously he's moved on to pastures new. You've now got Des Buckingham, who grew up in Oxford, came through your academy. So he's got those close links to the club. Saw a couple of articles that suggested that he was the perfect fit for that position. How's it started for Des?
It's been mixed. I think there was a big fanfare because he's an Oxford fan. His first interview, he talked about going to our old ground with his nan on the back of a mobility scooter and, season ticket holder, worked for the club before. So I think that kind of builds up that optimism within the fan base. Realistically, he walked into a squad that was probably a bit shell-shocked, having been put together by a previous manager who basically sacked it off in favour of more money within 8 months. So he kind of walked into probably quite a difficult position because the players were, trying to get their heads around what had just happened. I think his first game was Cheltenham away, who have picked up after their horrendous start to the season. So he was kind of onto a non-starter there, that he was expected to win it. If we had won it, then there wouldn't have been any plaudits. Because we lost it, it kind of press the panic button a little bit in some places. I think football fans are very quick to jump on failure these days. Losing one match under a manager isn't failure at all, but some people were trying to paint it as that. I think we've just slowly seen over, I think it's 7 games now in League and Cup, we've seen him start to just tweak things a little bit. He's very much out the Liam Manning mould. They both came through the City group and they like to play kind of the passing style football. But we're starting to see Buckingham now. He wants to get the ball wide, quicker. And he made a tweak against Burton on Saturday. So to be fair, we struggled to create a lot of chances all season. At the start of the season, we were scoring, most of our chances, but we weren't creating a lot. Towards the back end of Manning's kind of tenure, we were starting to stop scoring. And then at the beginning of Buckingham, we stopped scoring and stopped creating. But he tweaked something against Burton last week and we scored 3 and created a lot more. So it's whenever you have a new manager come in, you kind of tweak things slowly. And that's what we've seen really over 7 games.
Yeah, and I guess you'll be hoping that he can continue Manning's good work here. But I guess it's one of those situations when you do get a new manager, of course, you're looking at the table and thinking, yeah, we want to kind of stay there. But you don't really know if that manager can get the same results out of the team. Like you said, there's that kind of feeling of being a bit shell-shocked at him kind of moving on, him being Liam Manning. What's kind of the aspirations amongst the fan base now then? Is it a case of we would love to stay where we are? If I gave you playoffs now, would you take it? What's kind of your thoughts on that?
It's always a difficult one, isn't it? Because, you roll back to late July and everyone's excited about the season starting. And like on our own podcast, I think most of us said we'll probably flirt with the playoffs and may get in them, probably need some of the kind of other teams you'd expect to be up there to have poorer seasons. Now you roll it in, you sit third, and you think, oh, blimey, actually, there's an opportunity here to, not just flirt with the playoffs, but well and truly sit in them. I think realistically, I'm not one of those people who tries to be realistic as much as you can be as a football fan, and you go, we're still only 6 months or so since the end of last season where we finished 19th. Like, this has been a pretty speedy transition into a club looking upwards rather than behind them. So, yeah, I think if you offered me playoffs now, I'd absolutely snap your hand off. I think with kind of more international breaks in March, etc., the table will get a bit confusing with games in hand, etc., etc. So, yeah, I think we'd be happy with the playoffs. And if we stay with a reasonable sniff of automatics, we're not going to turn that down at all, because from where we were in April and May, this is a different football club.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess we always talk on the podcast about how it's the weakest league it's probably ever been, League One this season. And I think back to last season, I look at Plymouth and for whatever reason, I just thought they'd fall away, but they stayed around. And I think if you can stick around after Christmas, if you can get to kind of late January and still be there, you've got every chance of kind of finishing in the place where you kind of want to be. I guess for you is the worry with losing your manager to a championship team. Do you feel that the vultures are going to come and maybe look at the likes of Rodriguez, at the likes of Brannigan?
Potentially, although, I mean, Rodriguez has been in the building for 21 league games. He's already jumped kind of 2 levels. He's on a long-term contract. So you'd think there's quite a big fee there to take him away this early. Brannigan, I mean, the number of times Cameron Brannigan's been linked to about 100 clubs every transfer window's kind of gone on for 4 or 5 years now. We're probably in the best position. Well, we are in the best position we've been at this stage of a season while he's been at our football club. So if he's turned down moves previously and signed a new contract, why would he go now, kind of thing, when he's got the chance to, kick on with 1 point off second place with half a season to go. So I think it would take big money for the club even to entertain offers. I think the biggest risk is some of our loanees being recalled and sent to the league above. So I've mentioned Beadle, the keeper, already. But we've got Finn Stevens, who's a fullback on loan from Brentford. They might want to put him into the Championship. I think that's the thing now. With season-long loans, clubs the old days of having a player for 46 games is not guaranteed anymore. So I think the bigger risks are some of the loanees being recalled in January. I think, to be honest, the biggest thing for us is actually improving the squad further. Everyone wants a striker, but we are screaming out for a striker. Not many clubs who are third say that, but we need a goal-scoring striker because there's not one in the building at the moment.
Yeah, and your top scorer is actually Rodriguez in the league, I believe. He's a player that at the beginning of the season, I think everyone was linked with him, weren't they? Mm-hmm. And he was kind of the hot prospect coming up from Notts County. Ended up coming through at Oxford. Have you been, impressed with him over the course of those 21 games?
Yeah, he's definitely grown into it. I think someone with the kind of stats he had for not just one season at Notts County, but 2 or 3 in both goals and assists. The confidence is the level it is, but he shone in that league. So probably weren't surprised that he did take a kind of 2 league step up. I think it's taken a bit of time to get used to League One football. He's only played in England for kind of the 3 seasons with Notts County, and it was in non-league. He frustrates. I think he's the classic kind of European flair player that he does frustrate, gives the ball away occasionally and gets a bit ratty. Like he's had a couple of ridiculous yellow cards for dissent, and he, got sent off for a double booking for kind of unnecessary things. But his output is really starting to come through. He doesn't score tap-ins either. All his goals have been really good. We look a better team when he's playing. He moves the ball on a lot. He can get into space. He's a really exciting player, and I think it's almost a shame for him that he's kind of 26, 27, because if he was 5 years younger, I think he'd probably have a chance of, making a step to the Premier League by the time he was the age he now is, in that kind of weird example. But he was a massive signing for us in the summer. I think we beat a lot of clubs to him, and I think he'll be, key to us continuing to do well.
Yeah, you always wonder who was actually in for him, because how many teams that were, all these teams that were rumoured to be in for him, how many actually were in and had something on the table for him. But yeah, I was quite surprised, if I'm honest, that he went to Oxford with some of the names. And I know, obviously, you can't believe all rumours in football, but I was quite surprised that he ended up at Oxford, and it looks like it's a good fit for him so far. Just want to talk to you about the previous fixture. We talked about it before we came on air. Obviously, you beat us at Pride Park. It was, I guess, a topsy-turvy start for us, obviously losing to Wigan, and then a couple of weeks later losing to Oxford. Looking back at that game, what were your thoughts on that game? Why did you get the win?
I think we turned up and Derby didn't, ultimately. I remember... I actually live in Derby, so my colleagues are all Derby season ticket holders, and the next day I kind of walked in and you break down the game as you do. I just said, for me, that was a very Paul Warne-esque performance that Rotherham had seen countless times, and that would probably be the lowest of the low in that sense. It's not surprised me that Derby have picked up at all. It does mirror his kind of Rotherham team quite a lot, but I think we did the things we can do well on the day, and I think we dominated the midfield. We kind of played a little bit on the break. I know the second goal we discussed before we came on, and it was kind of a breakaway, good finish. Just, I think the irony in all of it, we walked away as Oxford fans with Mark Harris scoring twice, thinking, right, we've got ourselves a good one here, and then he hasn't scored since, and we're 19 games further down the fixture list. So yeah, I think that was a good performance where everything clicked. I think, weirdly to say this, because as I say, we are third, but we haven't seen many 90-minute performances this season. It is in dribs and drabs. Probably reflects our playing style and the players we've got, really. Then they're not going to be consistently on their game for 90 minutes. But yeah, at Pride Park, I thought we won all the battles that we had to win, I think. Bit of a nervy last 10 minutes or so after that goal from the long throw, but yeah, I thought we were well worthy of 3 points that night.
Yeah, it just feels so weird watching back, because Curtis Nelson, who I think is our best player and has been our best player this season, I think he probably gets that accolade if the season stopped tomorrow. But basically passed it to, I think it was Brannigan for the second goal, and he's not done anything like that since, which is quite strange. And yeah, like you say there, doing the research before coming on tonight, was expecting to see Mark Harris on, double figures in terms of goals, but like you say, not kind of scored since, which I found very strange. Has he been starting? What's kind of happening for him?
So yeah, he is the number 9. He did have a 3-match ban earlier in the season. He got sent off against someone for an elbow, which it was. And it kind of fell in that period where there's the international break and then there was Papa John's or whatever it's called now. So it was almost kind of 5 weeks before he got back into the first team again. And I think to be honest, he's not missed loads of chances. He probably missed all his chances in one game away at Leyton Orient. He missed 4 or 5 where you probably think he should score a couple. But and this comes back to my point about not creating loads of chances. He's not getting them and missing them. Realistically, we don't make too many chances. And I think a lot of fans' opinions are, well, just sign another striker, as if we're suddenly going to start creating for a new striker. But I think I must credit Harris with he kind of plays almost a little bit like Harry Kane, that he does drop quite a lot, and he sets up some of our good moves and gets the ball out wide to our wingers and the creative players. He's just not getting on the end of them. I think it's one of those, he needs one to kind of go in off his face from a rebound at a corner to give him a bit more confidence. And actually, if we were to sign a striker in January, the competition aspect might kick him on as well. It's strikers are such a strange breed. They can look like world beaters for a few games in a row and then kind of go missing. And he's kind of somewhere in between. He just needs a goal to get going again.
Well, you know what's going to happen, don't you? He's going to score against Derby, and he'll probably be on the double again, something like that.
I would take it.
Yeah, so strange to see that, but like we've said, I think he looked like an absolute world beater that day, and that second goal, I think, was probably one of the best goals that I've seen at Pride Park in terms of the intricate kind of play and working the ball for his kind of finish, which he took really well. So it's one of them that I think when we look at players to watch out for, if it was based upon the last game, then I think we'd have to put 3 men on Mark Harris. But as you said there, not scoring since, I think potentially may not have to be as worried as some people would be, I guess. Is there any other players that we should look out for, Jack? Is there anyone else that over the course of the last couple of weeks has been playing well and is potentially a bit of a game changer?
Yeah, so obviously we've mentioned Rodriguez, but the player who's really come to light actually in the last few weeks since Manning left is Josh Murphy. So he signed at the beginning of last season under Carl Robinson, and I think he played for Robinson before. And he came with a big reputation, having gone for kind of £11 million in his career. And especially when he was younger, he was deemed the better of the 2 Murphy brothers, the other, of course, being at Newcastle at the moment. But for whatever reason, he couldn't really get going last year. I don't know whether it was kind of injury, whether it was kind of things going on off the pitch, whatever. But this year he had a few kind of fleeting sub-appearances under Liam Manning and looked bright. And he got handed his first start of the season away at Reading last Tuesday, and he absolutely tore their fullback to shreds. Very much carried that on Saturday against Burton. He just looks like the kind of classic man repossessed. Completely looks confident with the ball. He's just missing that end product. So, classic football term, he's due an assist or a goal soon. Away from him, we talked about Brannigan before. He remains for me one of the best midfielders in League One. He's just a guy who loves playing football, hence why he's still with us kind of 4 seasons later. And then probably the other one actually is Marcus McGuane in midfield. So his career history cites Arsenal, Barcelona, your friends from down the road in Nottingham, but he came to us on loan probably 3 seasons ago now and looked really bright and hasn't really reproduced it. But this season, he's again another man who, might as well be a completely different person. He wants to get on the ball. He wants to drive forward. A lot of our good play starts with him kind of in front of that back 4. So, yeah, there's the first time in a few seasons where we've got a lot of players that you can look at to produce performance. But I think the ultimate thing is when they all click, that's when we look the best side.
Yeah, and do you think, is it the midfield that's going to win the game against Derby? Do you think that's where you see yourself winning the game?
Potentially, I think I'll be really interested to see how Paul Warne approaches it, actually, because I thought at Pride Park he surprisingly went really quite direct against us, and that suited us that night because we had two kind of more brutish style centre backs playing. The pitch at the Kassam's quite wide though, so obviously you guys got people like Mendes, Lang, etc. You'd think he'd want to get them on the ball, and actually I think we'll probably want to get our wingers on the ball as well. Try and move the ball quickly through the midfield and get it out wide. I think the tweak Buckingham made against Burst on Saturday was kind of pushing Brannigan a bit further forward to be involved in the play a lot more than he often is. So I think it'll be a really interesting game kind of between the lines. As I say, I think Derby are quite direct against us at Pride Park, and I don't know, when you've got players like Hurahan and Bird, you want to get them on the ball as well. So I think the wide positions in behind the kind of fullbacks / wing backs will probably be the key. But I think if a Hurahan takes the game by the scruff of the neck, or a Brannigan takes the game by the scruff of the neck, perhaps ultimately, you are looking at one of them to kind of dictate the outcome.
Yeah. And so how do you think that Derby could exploit Oxford's weaknesses then?
Again, I think it's one of them that we've got a lot of injuries at the minute. So we've got players like Marcus Brown, Carl Edwards, Sam Long, Greg Lee, Stefan Negru all missing. So the squad's actually quite diminished at the minute. So with a lot of games in the build-up, I know Derby play, it's Thursday night against Lincoln, isn't it? So you effectively get that 2 days extra rest with how it works out. It might just be getting at players who've played a lot of football. So, again, talking about Mendes Lang running at fullbacks, etc. I think really it will be about stopping players as much as playing to your own strengths. I think it will be stop Rodriguez, for example, stop a Stan Mills or a Josh Murphy on the wing getting too much of the ball. And, if necessary, kind of try and break the game up a bit. I don't think, as a football fan, you don't particularly want to see it, but you understand why it gets done sometimes, especially away from home in what is, potentially going to be a massive match for the playoff scrap at an absolute minimum, and depending on results, potentially the kind of auto scrap. So I think for Derby, it's probably about stopping the likes of Rodriguez getting on the ball, but looking to capitalise with the likes of Mendes Lang, get Collins kind of giving his centre half a real scrap. I like someone like John Jules, for example. I think he could give us quite a lot of problems. So, yeah, I mean, to be honest, it has the makings of a really good game. I think I've always quite liked Paul Warne's approach to these kind of games as well. When it gets to kind of the business end, the Christmas periods and your last 10 games of the season, I think he knows how to get the most out of his team. He certainly did at Rotherham. And yeah, I think next Friday could be a belting game.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be hoping that happens. I think we've seen it in glimpses this season. And obviously, the run we're on at the moment is fantastic. Obviously, the result against Wycombe wasn't the best in terms of, last kick of the game, conceding the penalty. But I think if Derby are going to get in the playoffs, or if they're going to look at the top two, the games over the festive period are really crucial, and Oxford away is going to be, one hell of a game. Obviously, we'll bring our numbers, so we'll have the backing of the Rams behind them. But yeah, I think obviously something's got to give there, and hopefully we'll get a little bit of revenge for Mark Harris's performance at Pride Park earlier in the year. With that in mind, what's your prediction for the game? Score prediction.
2-2, I think both teams will try and win the game, but I think ultimately it'll probably be a bit of a stalemate, but probably quite an exciting one. This is probably the kiss of death, but I don't expect anyone to kind of sit back and try and soak up pressure or anything. I think both teams will look to win it, and I think 2 games to go before then, obviously. But yeah, I think it's got the makings of a real good game. I think both teams have got the plenty of players who can threaten, and I expect that to happen. So, yeah, I'm going to say 2-2, and everyone will be entertained.
Oh, entertaining game. Yeah, 2-2 is always entertaining. I think for me that the midfield is where we need to kind of get a grip of the game. I don't think we've got anyone in there that can go and give a little bit. I think we're all a bit too nice and a bit too friendly in there. Ironically, I think we need Jamie Hansen, that obviously came to Oxford. Someone that's going to throw a few kicks about and be a little bit physical. I mean, he'd definitely get sent off, but yeah, someone of that ilk, a bit more quality, would be the kind of player that I think Derby need to go and get in January to be able to compete with some of the midfields in this division. Because, like I say, I think we're a little bit too nice. But I'm going to go for a reverse of the home game. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, something late and great, and Derby to hopefully have a good Christmas. I'm hoping for that, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be a really good game, and Derby fans will be looking at that fixture list. Obviously, Oxford away, Peterborough to come at on New Year's Day, and obviously Wigan away on Boxing Day. There's some really good fixtures there. So yeah, good times hopefully to be had. But Jack, thanks so much for coming on and talking to us a bit more about Oxford. We might see you in the playoffs, I guess, if you stick around, and if we stick around.
I hope not, because I get married the week after the playoffs to a Derby supporter, so that could be a really interesting couple of weeks if that turns out that way.
One of you will be saying no at the altar if that's the case.
Yeah, I hope not.
But yeah, Jack, thanks so much for coming on. If you have enjoyed this, please go like us on where you get your podcast from. Give us 5-star. We will be back reviewing, obviously, the game against Oxford next time out. And like we said at the top of the show, hope you had a really good Christmas. And from me and from Jack, have a very good New Year. See you soon.
Cheers.